Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers, and I'm a men's dating, relationship and intimacy coach. I forget to say that in these mini episodes. And I'm going to get into a topic here about avoidance and like what that is, right? Not necessarily what it is 5 things I did to stop being avoidant. If you're not sure what avoidance is, and you find yourself maybe fault finding and being scared to share your emotions and expressing yourself and being uncomfortable with maybe the idea of being in a relationship, scared of intimacy, scared of commitment, you may well be avoidant. And I've got an episode all about that. So if you just type in avoid and my podcast name, you will find that episode. It's from probably 4 months ago. I can't remember the exact number. I should do, but it's probably going to be in the 130s or 140s, one of the two, right? So here's 5 things I did, right, to stop being avoidant in dating. One of the things I did was a habit that I've been gotten into, and a lot of men I know get into, is like trying to kind of fix/add value to the women that we meet. And that looks like we meet a woman and we're like, oh, she's cool. And then we see that maybe she's struggling for self-esteem or she's struggling for confidence and ambition. And we're like, we've got ambition and we've got confidence. We can help her. Like some sort of Superman, superhero type thing. Where we can see there's a deficiency in their life and we can see that we have that and we can add that to their lives, right? It could be you might help them with their business. Like, God, it could even be sex life, right? You know, I can definitely say in my time, there were women I met who weren't having good sex and they met me and I was like, I'm going to give you good sex. The reason why you have to stop doing this is because it comes from a place of not believing that you have value unless you can add something to a woman's life that's very tangible and obvious. And it comes from a place of low self-worth and low self-value. And it's like, you in these instances, it's like you're trying to fix them in some way, because then they will see the value in you that you can't quite see in yourself. And it's not obvious with avoidant men. Often people think they're very confident, but it's not always the case. The second thing is I started to be more honest with my intentions in dating, right? I started to be a lot more clear from the early start. I wouldn't say I wasn't clear to start with, but I'd be a bit more honest. Like, I'm not looking for a serious relationship right now. And if that's what you're looking for, then we want different things. And I actually went a bit further than this, right? If I met a woman, I said that to her and she said, oh, that's fine. You know, I'm not looking for a serious relationship. I would check in to see if I think what she was saying was true. Like, does it really feel like that's what's true for her? And there were a couple of instances where there were women I dated once or twice, and I told them I'm not looking for anything serious, and they were like, oh, I'm not either. And the truth is I didn't really believe them, so I stopped dating them, because it just made my life a lot clearer, actually. And it meant that I didn't have these situations down the line where I'd be dating a woman, it wasn't serious, we're hanging out, 6 months in, she's like, hey, I'm really falling for you, I really want something serious. And I'd be like, well, no, I'm not interested in that. And then be upset and then be hurt and then maybe end up in this kind of back and forth where they would come in and out of my life wanting more and I didn't want more and I'd feel kind of guilty and shitty about it. So being clear with my intentions, but also while being open. I know this almost feels contradictory. I was open as well, right? Another thing I got clear on, right, and this was to kind of date into being a relationship, all of these are, is I learned to express my feelings for the woman I was with, right, or I was dating. So say, for instance, also will tell this very funny story. She's my partner, if you haven't heard me mention it before, where I think a few dates in, I said to her I was really fond of her, right? Now, this for me was actually quite a big thing to do, to express my appreciation and gratitude and care and love and, you know, for the woman I was dating was a really hard step for me. It's really uncomfortable. Like, oh, if I say this, it doesn't come out my mouth. It feels weird. It feels clunky. And I did that. And I found that not just with her, I did this with other women before kind of got to me also. It was like stating that I liked a woman that I actually liked, right? That I wanted to see more of and I was starting to develop feelings for, made things very clear for me and it made very things clear for them as well. Because even if it didn't go anywhere, which most of the time it doesn't, right? When I say go anywhere, it doesn't lead to like a long-term relationship, long-term marriage relationship or long-term relationship. Like, you know where you stand, you know that someone is developing feelings and they're happy to express those. Equally, there were times where the reverse happened where I was like, I'm not really developing feelings for someone. And I might end something in that case after a period of time that I felt was reasonable. So another thing I got clear on was I really got clear on the sort of woman that I wanted. The sort of woman I wanted and the sort of relationship I wanted. Very important points here. Because if we don't get clear on the sort of woman we want to date, we end up just kind of dating people who aren't really in alignment with what we want, and we can be in that space for a long time. Like, it's important at some point in our lives, if we haven't done much dating, to date different types of people to get an understanding of, what could work for us, who could work for us. But it's incredibly important to get clear on the sort of woman you want to date and the sort of relationship you want, whether that's the mechanics and the logistics of the relationship, the dynamic that you want, some of the agreements that you want, and so forth in a relationship. To get clear on those, but also to hold them lightly. And I say hold lightly is like, I want these things, but I want them. I don't know if they're actually the things that are really necessary for me, because often what we think we want and what we need are two very different things. Another thing, and I think this is the last one, because I've actually, instead of 5, you're getting 6. What I learned, there's another one I'm going to throw in here. I allow myself to feel the fear of rejection, right? Let me explain that. Often we fear rejection, but we don't really feel the fear. We just think about it a lot. And what this meant for me was that I found myself not necessarily moving towards the women that I really liked. I'd often be like, they don't want me, or they're not going to be interested in me, and so forth. Or I might date someone and I quite like them, and somehow I'd transpire to mess it up in some way, or start acting cold, right? Or start acting distant. And that was solved partly by expressing how I felt about them, for instance. But also feeling the fear of the rejection is like, that allowed me to face the possibility of rejection instead of wanting to run away from it. Because if I'm running away from the fear of rejection, then I'm not going to put myself in a position where I could be rejected. So I'm not going to say how I feel. I'm not going to maybe lead the relationship and dating situation further and deeper and to new experiences and on more dates and hang out together and spend time together. But by feeling the fear of the rejection, allowing myself to feel it and realize it's not that bad, I allow myself to lean in. And the last one, we've got to 7 now, but I learned to hold intense emotions, right? Without ejecting from the dating situation. Now, let me explain this, because this isn't always that clear. Often what we find is we start feeling fear, like the fear of rejection or fear of intimacy. We're getting too close. We're like, this person, we're spending lots of time together. Why are we spending lots of time together? This feels uncomfortable. Are they never going to leave my house? They've been here for 2 hours. Exaggeration there. It usually happens in the morning after they've stayed over. Or we get into fault finding, where we start to ruminate on these small thoughts about who this person is, some thought, a fault about them, right? Now, what we usually do when we feel these intense emotions is we want to get rid of the emotion, right? And how do we get rid of the emotion? We get rid of the person, right? That's the ejecting part. It's a bit like with, this is an interesting analogy or comparison. It's a bit like when we start to get horny, how we eject from, or we get rid of the feeling of being horny, as we masturbate, right? That is exactly the same sort of mechanism here, in my opinion, that's going on. And what I learned to do was just hold that emotion, just be with it, be with the fact that I'm feeling fear, or I'm ruminating about the thoughts that this person has, or I'm ruminating about this fear of us getting too close, or I'm ruminating about, was this the wrong relationship? I allow myself to hold myself in that and just be with that feelings, right? While also bringing my focus to what's good about this person, or what's going well, and how the future could go positively, right? While also leaning in to the relationship and leaning into spending time and leaning into putting my energy into the relationship. Because what normally we do, we eject either immediately or slowly. And the slow ejection would be just like killing the relationship with the death of 1,000 cuts. Where it's like we lean out, we stop putting energy in, they start chasing, we move away further. And this is you changing this habit of leaning out when things get uncomfortable, and you're leaning in instead, right? And that is a huge game changer. And then you can even add in there, it's like communicating with this person. Like, I'm finding myself feeling a bit afraid about where this is going, Like, I like you, but I'm feeling afraid. Again, it's communicating kind of how you feel, and you'll find that you can work through a lot of these things. So these are 7 things I did to stop being avoidant, amongst many other things in my dating life, right? But they really made a difference. They make a difference to my clients, the men that I speak to, the avoidant men that I coach into relationships, or men who are in relationships, and kind of deepen those. If these have been useful to you, share them with someone you know, share them with a man you know or a woman you know. But also, I have a dating program coming up, which starts in January. It is a 5-week program. We're going to touch on online dating mastery. We're going to talk about fears and insecurities and how to deal with those, self-expression and leadership, emotions and why they're so important, as well as a whole myriad of other things. I've got a couple of guest speakers in. I'm going to have some bonus material about how to ethically approach women, as well as a session I'm going to get recorded with my partner also about, what women want in dating, so that we as men can show up in the way that we desire. So if you're interested in that, that's £222, and the link is in the show notes. But I'll let you get on with the rest of your day.